Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. As you have already heard, Meghan Markle has struck again, and she has struck out at her critiques, those who she deems as trolls, in defense of her political stunt that she pulled the other day for the Times 100 speech with her husband Harry. Now, I found this article by The Mirror and I agree with a lot of the points raised by the body language expert Judy James. And I think that Meghan Markle only has herself to blame. Now, it seems as though every single time Meghan Markle is called upon to make an appearance, and I personally feel as though a lot of these companies that are paying her to make these appearances are pretty much wasting their money and their resources because she's not doing the job that she's been called to do. This is at least the 5th speech now where she has expressed her personal viewpoints regarding online hate, online toxicity, online noise, as she calls it. She likes to call it noise. When I think about all of her most recent engagements, she's talking about this online toxic culture, this online toxic behavior, this online toxic negativity. I don't understand her desperation and need to attempt to control what we say online, what people are watching, consuming, writing and reading online. She has to really accept that she's not a liked person. She's not one of the most popular celebrities, and she certainly isn't one of the more popular members of the royal firm. And she has no one else to blame but herself. That's just her lot in life. The way in which she conducted herself in the UK has left her in this position, along with her husband Harry. They're both in this position. But she's not happy about that. And she clearly does convey this in her latest interview. So she was interviewed by the Fortune editor Ellen McGirt for the Most Powerful Women Summit, which was an event that was obviously virtual and attended by those who had paid £10,000 per head to watch all of these speeches. I personally don't understand why Meghan would have been called upon to speak, or why she would have been paid to speak, when pretty much all she did was have a pity party. And the lady who was interviewing her opened up with talking about the swipe that she recently received from Donald Trump, the current US president, the mobs of online negativity and critique that she experiences, online communities that clearly do not like Meghan or Harry. And she went straight into a defensive victim type mode, which was evident for everyone to see. I'm going to insert quite a few pictures of the range of emotions that Meghan actually moved through. And I'm quite surprised that her face actually did change so much, because when she was in the UK, she had this very limited ventriloquist type expression on her face at every engagement. She was always smiling. Her eyes were always dead somewhat. They had no real expression. But for the first time, I actually saw more of her soul. And they say that the eyes are the true gateway to the soul. So I actually saw the anger. I saw the bitterness. I saw the enragement over what is going on and the way in which she hasn't been able to burn her bridges with the UK entirely. We're still talking. We are still defending our country. We are just as patriotic about what it is to be British and about our British heritage and our British culture as she is to be American. It cuts both ways, but I think that Meghan really underestimated the power of the British media's voice and the power of the British people's voice. So from what I got from this is that it's the slow realization that she hasn't been able to discard of her history in the UK the way in which she has clearly done all her life. Meghan Markle's gotten away with a lot in her life, and I think it's very evident for everyone to see that. She has discarded a lot of people, including her family members, when it suits her. Every time she's elevated to the next level of success, she has discarded something or someone. But that's not happening in this case, and that's what really conveyed was her frustration as to why we're not just going away silently into the night and disappearing. Anyway, I'm going to get into the article because I found it quite interesting what she said. The article is titled "Meghan Markle on Defensive and Displaying Signs of Anger in Latest Interview." Body language expert Judy James has given her interpretation of subtle signs Meghan Markle displayed during her most powerful Women's Summit interview with Fortune editor Ellen McGirt. Meghan Markle displayed signs of bewilderment with clear hints of anger as she stayed on the defensive during a Women's Summit interview, claims a body language expert. The Duchess of Sussex opted for a sit-down chat with Fortune editor Ellen McGirt during Tuesday's most powerful Women's Summit rather than deliver a lecture. She insisted she's not controversial, despite coming under fire last week for a video urging Americans to vote, and said what ends up being inflammatory is people's interpretation. And this is the wide gap of understanding that she's not quite getting. She really doesn't get it. She doesn't understand why the Americans did not appreciate her and Harry having a personal viewpoint as to whether they vote or not. You've been back in the country for 5 minutes. It is well documented that Meghan Markle was a resident outside of the United States of America for 10 years. That's a decade. She spent 7 years in Canada, and then she spent somewhat 2 years over here. So she just doesn't seem to get it. And Harry has no place. He has no dog in any fight because he's never really voted in the UK, and he certainly doesn't have the right to vote in America. So why would they be talking about voting? But she's saying that it wasn't inflammatory. I find it is inflammatory, and that's the issue that they're both having. Don't talk on things that you really have no place in. Get acclimatized to being in the United States of America before you really start talking about what they are doing politically. So I'm going to carry on. During the video interview, body language expert Judy James said Meghan put on a slightly defensive display with a misunderstood tone during comparisons to her Tom Brady interview last year. Meghan splays out on her sofa with her shirt sleeves rolled up to suggest she wants to get down to business, and she says, "Be authentic here," continued Miss James. But, there's nothing authentic about Meghan. And what I found quite laughable was the way in which she said A, B, C, and D, and then she continued to steal someone else's quote to close the interview, which was quite hilarious. She said, whether it's criticism or whether it's flattery, either way, they both go down the drain and they're not going to make a difference to who she is, or something along that line, which I will go into on a separate video because this is just an analysis of her body language and what we got from it. The displaying in pit bearing looks confident and gently powerful, as does the preen gesture with her hair, while the very subtle lower jaw jut and a few sharp accelerated blinks hint at some anger, although her tone overall signals bewilderment from a woman who tells us she has not been controversial in what she says in the past. Meghan emphasizes her emotional side again with the mention of tears, and as she looks away dramatically to consider her thoughts as she speaks, it is the shaking of her head that suggests a sense of bewilderment or disbelief. She wants us to feel sorry for her. She wants us to say, "Oh, poor Meghan. What's happened to Meghan? Are you okay, Meghan? Nobody asked me if I'm okay." That was the tagline and the headline for her Africa trip. She spent £250,000 on this global, somewhat tour to Africa. And instead of doing the work that she had to do, she stood there with the brazen chest after hopping off a private plane and said, "Nobody's asked me if I'm okay." I'm confused. Did Harry and Meghan not issue orders for people to not approach them around the grounds of Frogmore Cottage? Or did I get that from nowhere? Did I just pull that out of the sky? So I'm going to continue on. The Duchess addressed the summit virtually from the £11 million, and this is a joke of it, the £11 million mansion she and Prince Harry bought in May, said the couple are throwing themselves into tackling hate speech and toxic behaviour online. Okay. But not everyone is affected by hate speech or toxic negative behaviour online, Meghan. It's just you. This is your reckoning for everything that you have done. Meghan Markle has lost yet another part of her case against the Associated Press. Yep, she has. So she wanted it to be disregarded that she had contributed to the writing of Finding Freedom, but the judge has ruled against her. So I'm going to finish the article here. She said that allowing bullying and misinformation on social media is not sustainable and must be dealt with. The Duke and Duchess have called on advertisers to boycott networks, including Facebook, which allow hate speech. If the changes that are being made are in fact made, it's for the good of everyone, Facebook included, Meghan said. That's the end of this article. There's going to be a part 2. So I'm going to continue on with this because I think it's quite funny and hilarious to see the way in which she's now trying to backtrack and paint herself as the victim. Bye, guys.